I am so happy to introduce to you today Dr. Carl Rothschild, a leading innovator in LED, infrared light therapeutic technology. Since 1979, Dr. Rothschild has dedicated his career to helping patients achieve optimal health. His pioneering work led to the development of numerous LED products for various companies, ultimately refining his expertise in infrared light therapy. With over 20 years of groundbreaking research and innovation, Dr. Rothschild has cemented his reputation as a leading authority in the field. His advanced LED, infrared light bed, and pad systems have set new industry standards, earning him recognition as one of the world's foremost thought leaders in this science. He's the founder, researcher, and owner of Trifecta Light Technologies. Today, Trifecta light beds and pad systems represent the pinnacle of red light therapy technology. Dr. Rothschild is also the author of Illuminating Healing, a comprehensive exploration of the power of LED infrared light therapy. His foundation in science was built at Stony Brook University, followed by a doctorate from the Southern California University of Health Sciences, and since 1979, he's been serving the community of Los Angeles, directing the highly regarded Westland Health Center. This is Lucy Gable, integrative leadership coach and trainer, author, speaker, and this is my podcast, Leadership, Life, Health, and Happiness. Carl, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. That was more than 6 sentences. I'll let you go with that.
We can cut some out. You might want to respond to that and give us some more details.
It was enough detail with that.
I'd love to hear how you got started in red light therapy. What motivated this?
You know, it was 1972, and I was a junior at Stony Brook University, which is a very good school out in Long Island, New York. I was a very good student. I was science-oriented, loved biology. I loved all that stuff, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I got introduced to the notion of chiropractic. Now, in New York, chiropractic was tremendously frowned upon, as a matter of fact, but regardless, I decided that I was going to explore it, and I called chiropractors all over the country. I never found one that wasn't thrilled to have been a chiropractor or being a chiropractor, and that's what I wanted. I was a hippie of sorts. My version of hippie was money was not my motivating factor. I don't mind making money, but I get a kick out of helping people. I know it sounds corny, but I like helping people. And so the notion that I could go into a career that I would wake up in the morning excited about getting into work, and if you want to call it work, and having fun. And that's what happened. I graduated, I became a chiropractor in 1978 and opened up an office in Los Angeles, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. But then about 27 years ago, 20 years into my practice, a medical doctor out of USC, an orthopedic surgeon, a professor out of USC, who I knew prior to any of this other stuff, started introducing red light therapy to the country. He was the first one to get the FDA clearance for humans. Now, the veterinarians were using it on horses and large dogs. But for humans, Dr. Chadwick Smith brought this whole thing to the United States, and he comes to me with what looks like a flashlight, and he says, "Come with me, we're going to save the world." And of course, I thought he was a nut because he was telling me I'm going to shine a light on people and it's going to make a difference. Now, remember, I'm a wise guy from New York. I knew everything 20 years in. What was he going to do? Show me something that I didn't know? It sounds ridiculous. So I promised him, however, that we would use it. And we did, and it revolutionized my practice. I cannot even begin to tell you. Now, remember, that equipment was state-of-the-art at the time, but thousands of times weaker than what we currently use. But yet and still, back then, we were having nice results with it.
Okay, I'm interested to hear what the heck he showed you that made you believe in it.
That's like a flashlight, but it's using a certain element of light energy, not a typical flashlight. And we would shine that on somebody's body. I don't remember how long a dose was, but you would do it for a certain amount of time, then move it to another area, whatever. I went to go to my patient and say, "What you got other than what I've already been working on you?" This lady said, "Well, I have gum disease. Can you help me?" And I was going, "The only thing we know for sure is that it couldn't hurt. Can you imagine that they've studied this technology for 50 years and they have never found a recorded side effect? You couldn't hurt somebody with this stuff if you tried. I said, well, I don't know. Let's try it. We helped a gum disease, helped this guy kidney problem. There's a guy came in with a ripped Achilles tendon. We sent him to the orthopedic surgeon for surgery, and it was about a week until his surgery was going to happen. So we treated him every day. I said, I don't know, just come in, let's see what we can do. When he went on the end of the week to get the surgical review, he didn't need surgery.
Wow.
So there's two things to that. One, wow. And the
Yeah.
other is now you see why orthopedic surgeons are not thrilled with this, even though ironically, the guy that brought the technology to the United States was an orthopedic surgeon. We had people time and time again who needed the surgery, got in using our equipment, and then called up the orthopedic surgeon and said, I feel phenomenal, better than I've felt in decades. I don't need the surgery.
So
Or they
better.
go in and they doctor realizes they don't need the surgery. At
Mm.
any rate, so there I am using the light 28 years ago. I got very involved with this. And then we progressively went to a class one, then two, class three, and finally a class four, which is the ultimate in light power and whatever. But it was local. You know, you would do the shoulder, you would do the elbow. And then about 14, 15 years ago, it was discovered that there was an element of light that actually helped to shrink fat cells, could actually help with weight loss. Now, in case you don't know this, in this country, it's just probably nothing out there more popular than weight loss from a marketing point of view, from a health point of view. And so imagine if we can do weight loss without freezing the fat, boiling fat, lasering fat, without using radio frequency or ultrasonic cavitation, which is all about destroying fat cells. And the fat cells just have a bad name. They have a bad rap. And so people think, yeah, let's kill the fat cells. Well, the fat cells are essential tissue that you don't
Yes.
want to kill. You don't want to get rid of. You want to keep yours. And as
Yes.
a chiropractor, I'm not interested in damaging or injuring or destroying anything. In fact, chiropractors don't believe about putting anything in the body that doesn't belong there and don't yank anything out that does belong there unless there's absolutely no other resort. It shouldn't be the first thing to cut something out. With that said, there we are having a natural type of non-invasive therapy that can help with fat loss. And I said, okay, this is the ultimate. So I got started manufacturing my own equipment. I wanted the best. I knew what it took. And we created some wonderful, wonderful equipment starting around 14 years ago. But then COVID hit. And our practitioners wanted a way of treating somebody having less physical contact between the patient and themselves. And we developed a bed. And the notion of the bed had to do with the fact that you can get in and out yourself. So at any rate, we came up with this bed just as a substitute for what we had been developing up to that point. Little did we realize ultimately what was going to happen. And within the first month of us having delivered the first series of beds, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable results. But I don't care what you have. It could be Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis. It could be Parkinson's, dementia, any orthopedic problem, meaning musculoskeletal, bones, joints, whatever. It could be anything, arthritis, autoimmune disease, including rheumatoid arthritis, any intestinal issues. Even with diabetics, we'll see a lessening of the need for insulin. And for dialysis, sounds like I'm going alphabetically here. And I'm going to be sending you a bunch of videos. See if you don't also get the wow factor involved here, the amazement, the goosebumps that I get because I'm crazy about helping people. Where you have somebody like Steve that had a contracted Lyme disease when he was 12. And we don't get to meet him until he's in his 50s. So 40 years of a miserable life. He hated his life. And he couldn't have a career because there was some days he couldn't get out of bed. His energy was shot, brain fog. Watch Steve's video and see why I had goosebumps from that one. Because after one visit, he gets in the bed, gets out of the bed, and notices no difference and figures out it's a bunch of crap, right? But 5 hours later, and ever since, he's had more treatment, but his symptoms have resolved tremendously. His overall condition, and it's all about quality of life. All these people. So we call it also the fountain of youth. And it sounds crazy. I know you're going to say, yeah, it sounds like snake oil. You're going to tell me it helps everything. And I apologize. I absolutely apologize that we can't help so many things. I apologize.
I also grew up in New York, I know the cynicism of New York. So so I know that where you came from and from your studies, I know how it must have felt to be encountering this light and what you must have thought. And by the way, I've had red light experience myself, not as incredible as some of your patients, but having started out in pre-med myself and then going through 2 masters in STEM, I ran a couple of health clubs and spas, and I was working with dermatologists who did red light treatment, and I was thinking to myself, "Yeah, right, whatever, light, what's light gonna do?" Right? So I never really promoted it then, didn't really get into it. One time I was in LA and I got a treatment, a body treatment, and the red light came with it. So I took the red light, and I got out, looked at myself in the mirror, and my skin was glowing.
Blowing.
So that's what made me think, what happened there? I got 6 treatments because I had this other treatment it was coming along with. One of the treatments I went in with a bruise, and I came out and it was half gone, and that's when I started to think, there must be something going on with this light treatment, and then I started getting a little interested in it, and, another doctor friend of mine was talking about how he saw some research on diabetes and red light. And now I'm thinking, well, there's something going on here. Carl, you've seen research, no doubt, since before 1979, right? I feel like people have been telling me the research has been going on since the 50s on red light, and it's just not been talked about.
Well, that was NASA in the United States. From a clinical point of view, the essence of it was just before the turn of this century. So it was around the late 1990s when it really exploded, sort of, into the practitioner's hands. Prior to that, it was just research, and they really didn't know how they were going to translate that to treatment. So the first doctor, as I said, Chadwick Smith, he really put it all together somewhere in the mid to late 1990s. And I got just fortunate. I knew him prior to him being involved with light therapy. So I was all many things happen in life that are accidental almost, right? But it was just fortuitous that I was able to be exposed to this against my I mean, I thought it was crazy, but it turned out to be life-changing for me and for so many people that we've helped with this. And I also wanted to mention in regards to you when you tried the bed, I want you to know that the worse off somebody is, the more dramatic the change is. In other words, if someone's feeling pretty great and they get in the bed, I don't know if they're gonna notice a difference. Maybe they will. So I'm assuming you weren't half dead when you got in the bed, right?
No, it was pretty good.
I get in the bed. My goal is to have the highest quality life I possibly
Mhm.
can.
Yep.
So I
Me
eat
too.
right, pretty much. I exercise at least 3, 4 times a week, and I use the light on average 3 times a week. And it's just a 12-minute dose, and that's it. So it's not a big deal. And it has made a tremendous difference for me, but I mean, I'm wise enough to also take care of myself in general. Those of you that haven't taken care of yourself, you're just not scared enough of what your future could be like if you did if you don't take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you might wind up like some of my patients that are a mess. I mean, and who wants that? I wouldn't want that. So it's not, people talk about lifespan. And I talk about health span. How long you live is not as important to me as how healthy you live for as long as you can. So I liken well-being to it like a candle that burns bright from the very beginning to the very bottom and then sputters out and dies.
Mhm.
Instead of what typically happens the last 10 or 20 years of someone's life, it ain't so great. They're basically an invalid. And the reason why some of you out there are not taking care of yourself is because you don't have the fear factor that I got. As a chiropractor, witnessing people coming to my office where I wouldn't say it out loud, but there were times where I'd say, God, please don't let me wind up like that.
Yeah.
That's not what I want for my life. I'm 73 years old. I want to live as vibrantly as I can. I'd rather, I'm not going to go in life and death stuff, but I wanna live with the highest quality of life I can, and that's what I'm gonna tell you is smart eating, smart exercise. There's a million things you can air and sun and all that stuff, but the 3 main things in my life is smart exercise, smart eating or consuming, so it's also what alcohol and fluids and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and then smart red light therapy.
Wow. I'm going to add to that because when I was an exercise physiologist, I worked with a lot of people who put off taking care of themselves until they absolutely had to. And that was my fear as well, Carl. It
Yeah.
made me say, "Oh gosh, I never want to get there. I'm going to start now and prevent rather than try to fix later," which is so much
Which is
harder.
hard because most people are very pain oriented. So if they're not in pain, they're fine and they don't do anything about it. Fortunately, the dentists didn't rest with that. So their message was always like, if you don't want to lose a tooth, maybe you want to take care of it before you feel the pain. In fact, in
Right.
dentistry, if you feel the pain, you probably waited too long. That's not always true in the rest of your body, but in general, any of your organs or glands start failing, you've waited too long.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean we can't help you, but it means you're still had cut off the quality of life probably in the future for you. Like you see, I'm sure you've heard of people who didn't hardly do anything for themselves, and then they have a heart attack, and now the biggest exercise fiend in the world, but they can't regrow the damage or fix the damage that they've done.
It's
Yes,
not the
red light
same.
therapy would help, but wouldn't it be better if you didn't get that to happen in the first place?
I did read a few of the articles that you sent over, the research articles. And I read a little bit about the mitochondria and how it affects the mitochondria. I'm not sure if that is why it does so many things in so many parts of the body, but I think that my audience would be really intrigued with the why about how this light is affecting so many things.
Let's talk about the word infrared. There's no such word as just infrared. There's far infrared is about heat, and there's near infrared, which we used to call cold therapy, because it's not literally cold, but it doesn't get hot. And
Mm.
so if your lights or your system that you have gets hot, you know that they're using cheap knockoff junk. So I'm also going to go over what you should be looking for. But that's the story about red and near infrared. In our device, we've integrated red for the fat loss and for some healing, and near infrared. And the reason is because heat is the absolute enemy. You want to stay away from hot heat during the treatment. Now, afterwards, it doesn't matter. Heat's fine. But during the treatment of the light, if you have heat, you know what? When I take a hot pack off of someone's back, it's bright red. And that's because heat brings more fluid to the surface of the body. And that would block the penetration of the light. Heat is the last thing you want. So when they talk about red light saunas, which are fine as a sauna, but for red light therapy, it's not kosher. It's not good. And by the way, when I talk about red light therapy, again, it's the integration of red, which burns really bright red, and the near infrared. That's what I call red light therapy. But the near infrared is invisible to the naked eye. So the diodes that are related to near infrared don't seem to light up. You'll get somebody to say, I think this thing's broken. No, that's the near infrared that doesn't light up. So let's talk about, amongst other things, let's talk about why it works.
You said the heat is not good when you're doing the red light therapy. I do know I see some of the people that follow me talking about using red light in the sauna. They're also red light saunas. So are you saying that these are kind of
No,
counteracting each other?
I'm saying red light saunas are great for
Okay.
what they are, but it's not related to red light. They're using elements of light to create the heat. Like a toaster burns red from the far infrared energy. But if you're talking about the healing aspect, you only want to be with cold near infrared. And when I say cold, it doesn't literally get cold. It just doesn't get hot. So if your device is getting hot, we know that it's not, and it's supposed to be for the healing aspect. Far infrared is great to just relax the body. It doesn't do the components that I'm about to talk to you about on why and how it works. And it's only a little bit of the red for the healing aspect and near infrared.
I think
Near infrared
that's
is the miracle wavelength that I'm in love with.
good. I think that's a great distinction. I think that's a really important distinction. Hot red versus near infrared is so much better.
So two different mechanisms, fat loss and everything else. Now, fat loss, which is the easiest stuff, was only discovered a little over a decade, well, about 14 years ago, actually, that there was an element of red and only red that did something that in the beginning they didn't understand why it worked. They thought it melted the fat, but it doesn't. What it does is it changes the outside wall of the fat, many of the fat cells that are exposed to this light to become more porous. It allows the contents to leak out into the surrounding tissue. And then with our unique protocol, we move the fat away from the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination. And the results are not subtle. If you have somebody that cooperates, doesn't go home and pig out every night, the results are really beautiful. So that's fat loss.
Okay.
Now, some of you might say, well, what if I don't want to lose fat? Is that a problem? The red light seems to only target excessive amounts of fat. So if you're trim, it's not like you're going to wind up skin and bones after this treatment. No, you don't have to be worried about that. So now let's talk about my favorite part of this, which is the everything else section, which is really mostly the near infrared. Red does some of this, but most of this is about near infrared. So they started doing research 50 years ago to find out how light could make a difference. And they called it photo, meaning light, bio, meaning tissue, and modulation, meaning that the light affects the body in some certain ways. And this starts with NASA and other companies, throughout the world, different agencies that started studying this as much as 50 or more years ago. And they didn't know why it worked so well. What they learned was that there was a certain element of sunlight, including some red, but mostly the near infrared, that will stimulate the mitochondria to come back to life. So first, let's talk about what the mitochondria is. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the body. It's the reason why you breathe oxygen and eat food, to create this energy currency called ATP, the energy currency where if you have enough ATP, you can fight off probably any disease, any process, and be as healthy as you possibly can be. If you don't have the right amount of ATP because your mitochondrial system is failing, which happens a lot with some people, if it's failing, then all kinds of things can happen to you. So that mitochondria is critical to create that ATP, which is critical. And to give you an idea, first of all, what they're looking for is how sunlight could affect our bodies. And there are some tissues in our body, what they call chromophores. A chromophore is sensitive to light and can make a difference. Vitamin D is a good example. Some other things are stimulated by sunlight. And one of those things is not the mitochondria. Not the mitochondria. It's actually a enzyme that's in the mitochondria that actually is sensitive to sunlight, and it's called cytochrome C oxidase. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I just wanted some of you going to be going, well, the mitochondria is not a chromophore. It's not what's sensitive to sunlight. It's the enzyme inside the mitochondria that is sensitive to sunlight, and it brings the mitochondria back to health. Natural healing is not about doing it for the body. It's trying to eliminate the interference and let the body do its thing. So we want to give the body as much benefit as possible, not putting poisonous into the body, not yanking anything out that should be there, and giving the body the chance to do it itself. The body knows. In chiropractic, we call it innate intelligence. It is the intelligence to do what we need done for our well-being. And so what we do is we drive this beautiful light that we've magnified many times, drive it into the person's body. And so now here's where the snake oil comes from. Why would it be snake oil? When they call it snake oil, because we're helping so many different things in your body. Well, your body's made up of tissue. Every tissue has cells. Every cell has mitochondria and cytochrome C oxidase. And we are stimulating as many cells as possible. For that reason, it's important to know that where the miracles come from is head to toe treatment. So we use lasers and we still generate pads and stuff like that. And they're nice, but they're not going to give you the miraculous changes with the kind of symptoms that conditions I was talking about: Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, all that stuff. Those are things that are only going to respond when you affect as many cells as possible at the same time.
Mm.
So full body treatment is important. Not getting the light hot is important, but much power without heat, that's the essence there. So at any rate, we're stimulating the mitochondria to come back to life. And let's talk about the mitochondria very quickly again and how prevalent it is in your body. Would it surprise you? When I went to school, I was taught that there was one mitochondria in every cell of the body. Well, the heart, which has the highest demand for power, has over 5,000 mitochondria in every cell. And they have now learned that the mitochondria makes up 10% of your body weight. Give you an idea how important the mitochondria is, how prevalent it is, and is critical, again, why you breathe oxygen and eat food to generate that energy currency that can make the difference between health and well-being on one side and disease and death on the other side. I can't think of anything that we haven't seen great results with off of the top of my head.
So, just to recap, super simple for the audience that isn't familiar with mitochondria. And you have said powerhouse of the cell. To super simplify it, I would say it is what creates energy for our cells. The reason why we can do anything, why we can heal, why we can breathe, why our cells can replicate everything.
Everything, every function in your body is dependent on a healthy mitochondrial system. And there's a disease called mitochondrial dysfunction. And I want to call up the guy that's treating mitochondrial dysfunction and say, hey, get him in the bed. That's why my staff made this mug for me. Can you read what that says?
Get in the bed. That's
Because
great.
that's my attitude. It has no side effects. It couldn't hurt you if you. It's not like saying, why don't we rip out his kidney and see if that makes a difference? No, we're not doing that. We're
Yeah.
just doing something that is non-invasive, has never been shown to be damaging or injurious to anybody. And get in and try it 6 times, 3 times a week for 2 weeks, 12 minutes a dose. And when you call the facility up that we're going to recommend you to go to, tell them you want the Rothschild special.
Room. Okay.
Don't give me our Rothschild special. Tell me about it, and I'll kick their butt.
Oh, the Rothschild special.
So any tissue from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet are game. Let me give you an example. When a person gets in our bed, they don't wear the goggles. They just keep their eyes closed and their mouth open. We want to get that glorious energy into the mouth. But let's talk about the eyes. You can open your eyes, but it's a very bright light. So if I'm holding a flashlight in front of me with it on really bright, it's annoying, right? It's not going to kill my eyes. It's annoying. So somebody says, well, is it damaging? 50 years, never been a recorded side effect, but it can be annoying.
That is so great to hear because I opened my eyes in the bed yesterday and I was very worried.
No problem you opening your eyes. But again, I don't know which bed you're using. If you're not using medical grade high-end lights, then I don't know.
This one didn't get hot and I was wondering about
Which
it.
one?
But now it didn't get hot and now you're telling me that's good.
Well, but it also might not have been plugged in.
It was definitely bright, yes. Well, that's good to know. Yeah.
You want a bed that has medical grade lights that get very strong, but not hot. You want that the top canopy come right down onto your body. So some of the beds that don't get hot is because they know their lights are inferior and they have to keep the lights way off the body. These things on the wall, the panels, whatever, it's not going to work nearly as well. The further away the lights are from your body, you lose power exponentially. So you want the lights as close to your body as possible.
So we definitely have to look for the quality. I think I saw on your website as well that you have these pads for
Yeah, well,
people who can't
we
afford a
even
bed.
manufacturing pads before we did the bed, and they're fine. At the time when we first developed them, they were the state of the art, fantastic for fat loss and for some local healing. We were forced to come out with the bed because of COVID. The kind of results that we're hearing when you bathe the whole body, head to toe, left and right, front and back, inside and out, affecting as many cells as possible. That's when you're seeing the miracles. But if you're not interested in miracles, which some people are not, then the pads are the way to go.
Can they, let's say, affect joints or maybe injuries in specific places?
Yeah, it's just a specific local thing. But as a chiropractor, I'm a whole holistic practitioner. And as a holistic practitioner, I don't just treat, if someone came in with an elbow problem, I'm not just going to treat the elbow. I'm going to treat the neck, making sure the nerve flow to that and blood circulation is perfect to the elbow. But we treat the whole body with the bed. And imagine how easy it is. You go, Judy, go into room 3. That's where the bed is. Judy gets in the bed. She gets out of the bed. She walks to the front desk and goes, bye.
Yeah, that's
You
wonderful.
can see 3 people an hour with the bed. So from a business point of view, if you don't have this bed and your neighbor does, they'll put you out of business if you're in the same industry. The other thing is the ability to customize. So someone who's 80 pounds is not getting the same dose as someone who's 400 pounds. A 400 pounder has a lot of flesh, can absorb a lot of this energy without getting hot. And an 80 pounder has zero flesh. So we got to lower the power to both the red and, more importantly, the near infrared. Now, also, we can pulse the wave. I don't know if you've heard of resonating frequencies or healing frequencies, PEMF mats, things like that. All these things are enhancing the results that we're seeing.
Huh.
So our lights can be pulsed to different frequencies to create that resonating frequency. Different tissues of your body resonate at different levels, at different frequencies, and we set those frequencies. So to that end, we include 32 things with the purchase of our bed. That includes all the training that you need, coaching, all the print material, the marketing, everything that you need to be successful. Now, since we have the Pro 450, when I call any of our practitioners, they're thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
Mm.
The results are not subtle. And like I said, this one lady, she just referred 18 people to the facility where she goes to because it saved her life. For example, we had somebody with rheumatoid arthritis. She couldn't use the key to get into her house. Now, prior to this, she was a professional dancer, then an instructor, dance instructor, and now she can't do any of those things. And after 2 weeks of being on our bed, she's now able to easily get into her apartment with her key, and she's not going to be a professional dancer, but she can go back to dancing, which is a thrill. So those type of people refer a lot of people. And with the lessons and classes that we give, in fact, I just finished a book that's on the market now called The Ultimate Guide to Marketing Your Red Light Business, something like that. Because, I've had 12 of my own practices, but I've also lectured to people all over the country about how to market and manage your practice. And imagine when you're marketing and managing something that is so wonderful, it's a very easy thing to develop and create a large practice that's easy to handle.
And I'm sure that I have people listening who are interested in having something at their home as well. So this is really great information too, because I feel that, well, I'm in Los Angeles. I know you're close to Los Angeles, and I know that red light is very common here now. You were saying that when we go to your website, we can find the places that have your beds or these beds that you're talking about.
When you go to the website, trifectalight.com, this is where you're going to find the location closest to you so you can try it for 6 visits. And if you don't try it for 6 visits, you're no longer allowed to complain. I don't want to hear about it.
So 3 times a week for 6 total times
3 times a
is
week
the challenge
for 2 weeks.
for 2 weeks.
How they find the location. So you go
Find a
to
location.
trifectalight.com, which is right here. Trifecta, like winning at the racetrack, trifectalight.com. You go to the Contact Us page. On the left side of that, you put in your information and we'll find the location closest to you. On the right side of that page is finding, uh, looking into the possibility of you buying a bed, either for your home. People, we have a home model, but we also, some people want the more advanced, more robust bed, like I have in my home. But the home model also works very, very well. Uh, or you might want to have it for your business. And in fact, what I'm suggesting, if you don't have it for your business, I think you're making a big mistake because your competitors eventually will have our bed in their business. So you're looking for, as I said, the ability to pulse the wave, that you can customize it, that the bed lights come close to your body, and that the lights are very high-end medical grade lights that don't get hot. I don't make a penny off of this book. All the
Yeah.
profits go to charity. But if you do want to read a pretty good book on red light therapy, it's called Illuminated Healing. I recommend you go to that. The other thing is our YouTube channel. Now, I'm not kidding. It's wonderful. And so if you go to YouTube and put in the @ sign and Trifecta Light Official, you're going to see our over 130 really quality videos that I recommend that you see. So we talked about my book. We talked about the YouTube channel. I also want to talk to you real quick about Google Scholar. I don't make any money off of any of these things, especially Google Scholar. But if you go to Google Scholar, it was just scholar.google.com and put in the phrase in quotes, red light therapy, you'll see thousands and thousands of double-blind studies, research papers, articles, all kinds of stuff. And then after that, you can put in whatever's of concern for you, whether it's lupus, whether it's pregnancy or fat loss or whatever, as you're doubting, can it work for that stuff? And or is it dangerous for anything? And remember, there's no side effects and almost no contraindications. Contraindications mean who should or should not get in the bed. There are two legal contraindications. One of them is a pregnant woman. And this is a common thing in therapy. The other contraindication Again, it's a legal contraindication is cancer.
And like you said, I mean, it's definitely not as expensive and it's absolutely not as painful or long term as surgery or medications or on a lot of things that people otherwise go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
This
really
is why I love it, and this is why chiropractors take to this really heavily because it's just elements of sunlight that we're driving into the person's body, never had a side effect.
I saw a Facebook post about red light and someone commented, "Oh, I'm just gonna go outside when the sun is setting." What would you say to that? Is that the same red light?
Well, it sort of is, but 1,000th of the power. The changes that we're seeing are because we've magnified this beautiful sunlight thousands of times and then drive it deep into the person's body. Do I mind someone also getting sunlight? No. I don't mind them eating smart and exercising smart. It's not any one thing. So somebody does everything else wrong and gets in the bed, that's dumb. You want to do as many things right as you possibly can in your life. And I think the smartest thing is to take care of yourself. And don't wait until you're in big trouble to do it. Like I said, I had a friend that never took care of themselves, and they came home, they had drinks because they had they were an attorney and had crazy days and very stressed. And then when he wound up with cancer, all of a sudden he becomes a marathon runner. But he kind of waited too late because a lot of things are irreversible. So the earlier that you can start taking care of yourself, some people are self-motivated. That's not that many. More people are like me. I'm some motivated, but I'm mostly scared to wind up like I've seen so many other people. I don't want that. And for a 73-year-old, I don't do what I did 20 years ago, but I do okay.
Mhm.
And I recommend that for you as well. Staying as limber as you can and working out, eating smart, and using red light therapy in your life.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing all that you have, Dr. Rothschild. I appreciate you being on the show today.
My pleasure. I appreciate being here.
We'll include everything in the show notes to those that are still here. And thanks for joining, listening in, and we'll talk to you next time.